All right, buenas noches. Sorry for the hot mess, guys. I was just getting ready to get everything scheduled and set up, and I was like, oh, I'll just check and make sure the video's good from last year, and it is not. There's no sound, so I'm gonna have to redo this real quick. So I apologize. This is what I normally look like at home. All right, we are gonna talk about El Preterito this morning. This should be fairly familiar to you guys, just because we have done the preterite. We've been doing the preterite for quite some time. Okay, so cuando usas el pretérito? When do you use the preterite? And we're going to be getting more and more into like the fine details of when exactly we use the preterite as we move into the preterite versus the imperfect. So for now, I'm just going to give you some general guidelines. So the preterite is going to be used when we're talking about a completed action in the past. So this is something that like I could put on a timeline and be like, on this day I did this, on this next day I did that, on this next day I did this other thing. Okay, so it happened at a specific point in time in the past. The action is not ongoing, it's completed, it wasn't done habitually. This is also used for actions in the past that interrupt something else. And it's something that happened once. Okay. Some of your signal words for the preterite are anoche, ayer, pasado or pasado with a time frame. So like el año pasado, el mes pasado, el año pasado, el whatever day of the week pasado. Pardon me. If it just says like in el pasado, in the past, that's probably going to indicate the imperfect, because it's going to talk about like something that happened that was ongoing, but we're going to get to that later. There are no stem changing verbs in the preterite unless it is an IR verb that stem changes in the present tense. So that's going to be verbs like seguir, morir, dormir, servir, pedir. All of those are going to be stem changing. But for ER and AR verbs, you don't have to worry about stem changing. Oh, look, there's my list. Okay, so my AR verb endings in the preterite: haste, o, vamos, estáis, and aron. So remember, we have accent marks here and here, and you have to have those accent marks. If you don't include your accent marks, they're not in the preterite. This would be in the subjunctive, which we're going to get to in like Spanish 5, and this would be in the present tense with the yo form. So it's really important that you have your accent marks. The nosotros form, you'll notice, is the same for the present and in the preterite. So you'll just have to rely on your context for that. And so you're looking for your indicator words, your anoche, ayer, anteayer, el año pasado, hace time que, or hace with your time expression. For ER and IR verbs, they have the same set of endings, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about it. So it's E, so I with an accent, iste, io, the accent on the O, imos, estáis, and hieron. So again, with IR verbs, it's the same in the nosotros form, in the preterite, and in the present. So again, you're just relying on the context for which tense or when it happened. Okay, so down below here, I have some verbs for you, and I want you to just go ahead and translate these from English to Spanish. So these are all in the preterite. A couple of them, or one of them, he shaved. This is a reflexive verb, so don't forget your reflexive pronoun. On your chapter test, this is what your preterite verb section is going to look like. Okay, I'm going to eliminate that preterite verbs quiz that I had initially told you to plan on for the 9th of February, and I really just don't think that we need a quiz over it and then a test over it. So it's just going to be a test, and it's going to be set up like this. I'll give you 20, you have to pick 10. Okay, so take just a second, hit pause on the video, and then go through and translate these, and then hit play when you're done, and you can check your answers. Okay, number 1 should be bailé, I dance, so bailar in the yo form. Number 2, comió, accent on your O, accent on your E in bailé. I'm sure you guys noticed that. Number 3, cantamos. Number 4, caminaron. We're going to use caminar for this chapter whenever it says walk, just because andar, the other verb for to walk, is irregular, and we'll worry about that next chapter. Number 5, él se afeitó. So make sure you have your se, because he shaved himself. Number 6, escribiste. Number 7, nadaron. Number 8, abristeis. Number 9, salieron, and ella gastó. That gasto is from your new vocab list. So this should all look relatively similar or relatively familiar for you so far. Some spelling changes that exist in the preterite. So AR verbs that end in car, gar, and zar will have a spelling change in the yo form, and it's only in the yo form of the preterite form. And this is because your C, G, and Z will be affected by the E, is the ending in the yo form in the preterite. And so we want it to stay sounding the same. So my C is going to change to a QU, so explicar is going to become explique. It's still going to be pronounced like explicar, but if I don't do this spelling change, it becomes explice, and explice doesn't sound like explicar, because this E is going to make this C a soft sound. It's going to make it a sound just like it does in English. With Ar verbs, the G is going to change to a GU, and this is going to be one of those times where it's one of the rare times that you don't pronounce every letter. Whenever you have like GUE or GUI, the U is silent, and it's just there to put a little bit of distance between the G and the E or the I to keep the sound as a G sound instead of a H sound. So hugar becomes huge, GUE. Pagar becomes page, GUE. And then ZAR verbs, the letter combination ZE can't exist in Spanish. This is one of those things where my non-native speaking ears don't quite hear the difference between like a C and a Z. But I know from talking to my native speaker friends and students that whenever you have ZE, it kind of puts a stress on the Z, which is a little bit weird. But as if you don't hear it, that's fine, because I don't hear it either. But you have to know that we cannot have the letter combination ZE in Spanish. We have to change the Z to a C. So if we have words like empezar, it becomes empecé. And again, this is only in the yo form, because your other endings for AR verbs aren't going to affect, like your A's and your O's aren't going to affect the sound of your C's, G's, and Z's. Okay? Some other spelling changes that exist in the preterite tense. Vowels, or verbs, ER and IR verbs whose stem ends in a vowel, such as construir, which we'll get later, it's to construct, caer, to fall, we're going to get later, traer, which is to bring, we've had traer before. We've had, and then oír, to hear, and leer, to read. Leer and traer are going to be the most common ones that we talk about, because we worry about these two later on, and I don't think we ever use oír. And this has a spelling change in the third person form, and it changes from I-O to Y-O. And it's just to keep it from there being like this like massive amount of vowels. So for example, like leer, and then ieron to ieron with a Y. And it just keeps it from being a weird stress, having like that big vowel combination. So it's just one of those slight spelling changes that we have to adjust to. And that's only in the third person forms of ER and IR verbs, whose stem ends in a vowel. There are some stem changing verbs in the preterite. And so IR verbs that stem change in the present tense will also stem change in the preterite tense, but it is not always the same stem change. So for example, like dormir is O to UE in the present tense, but it's just O to U in the preterite. And so I will always tell you guys, like when we get those regular verbs or those stem changing IR verbs, like, all right, here's how it stem changes. Okay, and stem changing verbs in the preterite are sandal verbs. So it's not the shoe, it's just the sandal. So it's just the third person forms. Okay, so these are going to be some of your spelling change ones. Number 10, to destroy, is destruir. So it's just like construir, but it's DES here instead of CON. Okay, so go ahead and do these. If you don't know all of them, it's okay. So hit pause, do your best, and then hit play and check your answers. All right, number 1, leyó with a Y. Number 2, jugué with a GUE and an accent. They heard, oyeron. So that's that verb oír, which was this one. So it changes to OYERON. Oyeron. He built, construyó. She did, this one's just irregular, hizo. I don't know why I have it on there. I started empecé or comencé. I looked for buscar with a QU. So empecé and comencé both have C's. I looked for busqué with a QU. Number 8, I practiced practiqué with a QU. Number 9, I ate lunch, almorcé with a C. And they destroyed, destruyeron. Really, guys, the only ones that you need to know are your cargars, Ar verbs, and layer. And then possibly try. Okay, all right, let's see what else I have. Okay, this is all I have for this. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'm also going to post some practice for you guys today, and make sure you take your vocab quiz because that's really important. And make sure that you check in with me at some point before 2 o'clock so I can count you present. Stay safe, stay warm, and I will hopefully see you on Friday. Adios. Oh my gosh, I can't turn it off.